are welcome here in this Unitarian Universalist congregation. Whatever religions you have known, however you understand the divine, you are welcomed here. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever body you live in, wherever your ancestors are from, you are welcomed here. Take a breath. Slow down. Be present. Let yourself be authentic and real. Let this be a sacred space, ready to welcome everyone with an open heart. This morning, we welcome Devin Shmueli as our guest preacher. Devin comes to us with a passion for mental health education, suicide prevention, and stigma reduction around mental illness. He graduated from Andover Newton Theological School with a Master of Divinity degree in 2017, where he focused his learning on pastoral care and counseling, as well as social justice and ethics. Devin serves as Director of Community Engagement at First Parish in Waltham and as an education and learning consultant for the Blue Dove Foundation, which is a Jewish mental health organization.
Today we light our chalice with the words from Reverend Dawn Fortune. We light this chalice as a symbol of our free faith. We light this chalice to remember the miracle of the oil that burned for 8 days. We light this chalice to mark the nights of midwinter. We light this chalice as we wait for the sun to return. And we follow the All Souls tradition of lighting a green candle, symbolic of our commitment to being a green sanctuary congregation. May both these flames call us to kinship and great care for the earth and her living creatures. As we center our hearts, let's sing our chalice song for December in the quiet and stillness of the morning. There's sheet music for this beautiful piece in your order of service, which should be in your chat.
In the quiet and the stillness of the morning, in the quiet and the stillness of the day, in this quiet holy place, I find blessed peace within. In the quiet and the stillness of the morning.
This morning marks the third Sunday in the season of Advent. In the Christian tradition, Advent is the beginning of the church year, recognizing the transforming power of God in the world and looking forward toward the birth of Jesus and the celebration of spiritual light. Each week until Christmas, we light a new candle on the Advent wreath. When so much asks for our attention, the lighting of one candle after another reminds us that this season must pass in its own time. Birth cannot be rushed. We have the choice to be awakened and fully inhabit the present moment. The light of Advent grows brighter and brighter as we celebrate our coming together as a community. This morning, we light the third candle. We light this candle as a symbol of joy, not just any simple cheer, but the experience of joy that cannot be contained. Advent asks us to proclaim our gladness as a gift to the world, even when sorrow and uncertainty abound. May we share our hearts through our words, our music, and the way we live our lives. Let the fullness of our joy lead to more freedom.
Good morning. Last night, families around the world lit Chanukah candles, lighting 3 candles for the 3rd night of the festival. So I bring this morning the practice of lighting candles to this Unitarian Universalist congregation, where many of us, like myself, have a Jewish background or want to honor the Jewish holidays. The rabbis of the Talmud, well, they argued a lot, and one of the things they argued over was how one should light the Hanukkah lights. One rabbi and his school of thought that each night you should add an extra light, that on the first night you light 1 candle or lamp, and the second night you light 2, and so on. Another school of thought said, no, you should start with 8 and get fewer and fewer as it goes on. So from 8 candles and lamps or lights to 7 and 6. Well, as you may have guessed, the school of thought about adding light won over time, that's what we do. And the rationale is that we should be increasing light. We should be increasing joy in the world. We should be bringing more light to darkness. I'm taking that to heart this year, that in a year where things have been hard, let's add light. Let's add joy. Let's add wonder. So whatever that looks like for you, may this be a season of increasing light and joy, warmth and connection during long nights. I'll sing the Hanukkah blessings in Hebrew, the first 2 blessings over the candle, and the 3rd for the first time in a year where one does something. And since this is the first Sunday this year where we're lighting Hanukkah candles together, we'll sing that one as well. And following that, we'll say the English translation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem ba'azman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hechianu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings moments of holiness to our lives through the ritual of lighting the Hanukkah lights. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings our attention to miracles from ages past to this very moment. Blessed are you, source of all, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this very moment. And let us say, Amen. Happy Hanukkah.
Friends, I am delighted to be with you all today. My name is Devin Shmueli, and one of the things that is most important to me in this world is self-care and mental health, and making sure people have the tools that they need to really practice what they need in order to be well. So to begin our time together, I want to share the words adapted from Come Down Off the Ladder by David Blanchard. Come down off the ladder, wash out that paintbrush, shake the sand out of your shoes, get up off your muddy knees, and give the garden a morning off. Fold up the newspaper, turn off the coffee pot, close up your calendar already filled with dates and times and people and places that claim you. This Zoom sanctuary is ready for you to fill its space, to create its spirit, to generate its warmth, to kindle its light. This congregation is ready for you to make community, to create beauty, to bend it toward justice, to serve its ideals. This congregation is ready for you to be here, honoring your past, invigorating your present, and dreaming of a bright future. This is your church. You are home. You are whole. Let us begin. Let's join in singing our opening hymn together, The Fire of Commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits onto faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims to be witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when the hunger of our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Now is our time for sharing of joys and concerns. We will not be recording during the sharing of joys and concerns. I will drop one final decorative ornament. For all the sorrows and all the joys that remain unspoken, let's say together, we hold you in our hearts.
Let's center our hearts with singing Hashiveinu, which is text from the book of Lamentations. It's a round that we'll sing in Hebrew, and I want to give you a quick tutorial on how to pronounce the Hebrew. The first word is Hashiveinu, and it repeats, Hashiveinu. Adonai Elecha v'nashuva. Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem. In Judaism, there's a prayer called the Misha Berach. It's a prayer for healing, and there's usually a prescriptive way that it is prayed. But I have written an interpretive version of the prayer that I want to share with you all today, and it is for mental health specifically. So I invite you to join me in a time of meditation in prayer, first in words, then in shared silence, then in melody from Don Swanson on flute. Source of life, bless and heal those among us who live with mental health concerns. May they know hope and resilience as they find their way to wellness. May they treat themselves with self-compassion and their caregivers with patience. May they share their experience, strength, and hope so that they and others know they are not alone. May they be met with referrals and resources when they reach out for help. May they find friends and loved ones willing to reach out first, early and often. And may they find inclusive and welcoming communities that will accept, uplift, and celebrate their full selves. Bless and heal those among us who support people who live with mental health concerns. May they know strength and courage to support our loved ones. May they treat ourselves with the self-care we need to sustain us as we care for others. May they find solidarity and wisdom from other caregivers. May they listen without judgment and with the intention to help when asked. May they find the ability to notice when others are struggling and intervene in appropriate ways. And may we all create communities that accept, uplift, and celebrate those among us, no matter who they are or where they are on the journey to mental wellness. Amen.
Now for our call to the offering. The work of the church cannot be done without the contributions of the community that call it home. A link is going in the chat. I invite you to give what you can, when you can, now or later, online or via check mailed to the church. The offering for the work of the church will be gratefully received.
Today's reading is The Miracle by Philip Raskin. The rabbi tells his old tale, the pupils seated round, and thus, my boys, no holy oil in the temple could be found. The heathens left no oil to light the Lord's eternal lamp. At last, one single jar, was found with the high priest's stamp. Its oil could only last one day, but God hath wondrous ways, for lo, a miracle occurred. It burned for 8 whole days. The tale was ended, but the boys, all open-eyed and dumb, sat listening still as though aware of stranger things to come. Just wait, my boys, permit me, pray, the liberty to take. Your rabbi, may he pardon me, has made a slight mistake. Not 8 days, but 2,000 years that jar of oil did last. To quell its wondrous flames availed no storm, no flood, no blast. But this is not yet all, my boys. The miracle just starts. This flame is kindling light and hope in countless gloomy hearts. And in our long and starless night, lest we should go astray, it beacon light sheds floods of light, and eastwards points the way. Where light will shine on Zion's hill as in the days of old, the miracle is greater, boys, than what your rabbi told.
Recently, I was asked to present a 3-sentence sermon about mental health and Chanukah. Here's what I shared. The miracle of Chanukah is one of abundance in a time of uncertainty, fear, and scarcity. Radical self-care acts as an oil in our lives, fueling the light we have within us. We must rededicate ourselves to mental wellness every day. And really, that gets to the heart of my message today. Many people think of tending to our basic needs like eating, sleeping, or showering as self-care. And yes, those things are acts of caring for ourselves. However, there are other more radical ways of enacting self-care in our lives. It can mean going to a therapist, doing something physical with your body like yoga, making gratitude lists or sharing your gratitude with others through physical handwritten cards, going on a social media Sabbath, or observing a whole day of restful Sabbath, or being with the ones you love. I can go on and on about some more ideas. These things should not be radical, but sadly in our society they are. In my own life, this idea that self-care is too radical for this world has prevented me from practicing self-care. This prevention has at times hindered my ability to dedicate and rededicate myself to my own mental wellness. One of my greatest passions is educating and training congregations to become safe spaces for people living with mental health concerns. I do this work so people like me living with mental illness can feel supported in their community. And because none of us can be all things to all people, I do this work so that communities can acknowledge and understand their boundaries and limitations. Ultimately, I want to live in a world where discussions around mental wellness and mental illness are normal. I want to live in a world where we can share our stories without stigma or shame. I want to live in a world where suicide prevention is an important value in every community and congregation. I believe that storytelling saves lives, lifts the veil of shame, and brings us that much closer to a stigma-free community. That said, my story may become too overwhelming for you, and so you will not offend me if you choose to turn your camera off, mute your computer, and observe without words. When you see the words of our hymn pop up on the screen, you are welcome to virtually return to our Zoom sanctuary as you feel so moved. If you or someone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide or are at risk for self-harm, or if you or someone you know is experiencing any other mental health concern, there are resources available to you, so be sure to contact your minister, Reverend Joanna Lubkin, or save one of the numbers pasted in the chat. I'll share that after my sermon. As someone living with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, I go through periods of depression and mania. When I experience mania, I forget my need to stop, slow down, take a break, and rest. I tend to take on more than I should or could, with little need for sleep, and I run myself ragged until I slowly crash into a state of depression. It is not until I experience that depression that I become aware that this has happened and that something is wrong. And sometimes these depressive episodes make living my life feel impossible, and the situation becomes dangerously close to being too late. While I strive not to let it get to that dangerous point, when I reach that dangerous point, there is only one last act of radical self-care possible, which is the most difficult of all for me, and that is getting the help I need. The last time it nearly became too late, I held several jobs and had been running on empty for weeks, and life just felt so difficult. After a few weeks, I fell into the hole of depression without the leverage I needed to climb out. I found myself preoccupied with death to the point that several times a day I wondered what might happen if I were to die. These thoughts were becoming insurmountable and uncontrollable, and soon they developed into active suicidal thoughts. I not only contemplated suicide, I had a plan and had acquired the means to execute that plan. As I sat in my kitchen, I began to cry and felt inconsolable. While the pain of depression left me wanting to die, a part of me wanted to live. Harnessing that desire to keep living and taking on a last-minute radical act of self-care, I began to make calls through my contact list of close friends, one by one, to see if they would pick up in the middle of the workday. It did not take long for two friends to call me back, one after the other, and I asked them both to meet me at the hospital. After being admitted to the emergency room, I was sectioned on an involuntary hold and would not be removed from that hold until after a week of psychiatric hospitalization. There's nothing more scary, painful, or dangerous than one's desire to die by suicide, both to the person contemplating and to those that love them. I'm so grateful for the two friends who met me at the hospital, for the work that they did together to advocate on my behalf, and for taking turns being with me until I felt ready to be alone in the hospital. I'm also grateful to my entire friend circle who made sure to visit me for 7 days, even when it brought them to tears, and helped me coordinate my care after I was discharged. For years now, I've been preaching about and educating around mental health. And yet too often I do not do the important work of self-care required to fuel the light within me. When I do not choose self-care, I'm essentially choosing to let my light burn out. I am my own source of burnout. In our reading this morning, we read not 8 days, but 2,000 years that jar of oil did last. To quell its wondrous flames availed no storm, no flood, no blast. But this is not yet all, my boys. The miracle just starts. The flame is kindling light and hope in countless many hearts. We may not live for 2,000 years, but daily radical acts of self-care can help us to rededicate and dedicate ourselves to mental wellness for days, weeks, months, and years. May we each fuel the fire within us with radical acts of self-care. May we each light the path of life for ourselves and for others. And finally, may we each move from strength to strength, finding comfort in the company we keep, to wake up renewed for each new day. Now let's sing our closing hymn, Go Lifted Up, which was written by Mortimer Barron from the UU congregation in nearby Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Love bless your way. Night star, light guide your journey into peace, and I
I will now end our time together with a prayer which will appear on your screen. While remaining muted, I hope you will join me with the response, "We need a time of Sabbath rest." Because the daily pressure of life weighs heavy on our minds, on our bodies, and on our spirits, we need a time of Sabbath rest. Because the stresses of our culture often leave us feeling burdened and looking for hope, we need a time of Sabbath rest. Because rest, fun, leisure, and naps help us cope and feel refreshed, we need a time of Sabbath rest. Because we think more clearly, love more freely, and share more joyfully, when we are well rested, we need a time of Sabbath rest. Giver of life, help us recognize when we need to stop and care for ourselves. Allow us to enjoy Sabbath as often as we need one. Allow us to rest without guilt so that we may work with more joy. We are thankful for the gift of Sabbath rest. Amen.
Now for announcements. At approximately 11:45 after the service today, there will be a Dickens Festival debriefing meeting. This coming Tuesday at 3:30 on Zoom will be a midday meetup connection circle. Also this coming Tuesday at 7 o'clock on Zoom, there will be a discussion of the General Assembly Where lecture by Naomi Klein, and this will be hosted by the Social Action and Environmental Committee. This coming Friday at 10 o'clock on Zoom, there will be a coffee hour connection circle. Next Sunday at 10:30, Reverend Joanna will return to lead our service, and it will be on the stillness of the solstice. Also next Sunday at 5:30, held outdoors at United First Parish in Quincy, will be Lights on the Longest Night. And this church will be celebrating its Christmas Eve service at 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 24th, and that will be held online.